Welcome to the Mason Duchatschek Show, presented by workforcealchemy.com, where business leaders discover practical ways to select, engage, and retain their best employees. Today's guest is Dr. Gleb Tsipursky, a behavioral scientist and CEO of Disaster Avoidance Experts. He's also the author of 7 books, including the forthcoming The Psychology of AI Adoption at Work. His insights have appeared in Harvard Business Review, Fortune, Forbes, and the New York Times. He helps leaders understand why AI adoption succeeds or fails inside of real organizations. Dr. Tsipursky, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me on, Mason. I appreciate it. It's a pleasure.
So you argue that many AI initiatives fail for human reasons rather than technical ones. What is the most surprising example that you've seen of a promising AI project being undermined by employee behavior?
What happens is that people are given an AI tool that's specifically customized to a workflow, and they're supposed to check the output of that workflow. So, for example, one thing I've seen is with emails to prospects. So it's an example where the AI tool looks for, for investment management company, wealth management company. It looks for various triggers. For example, announcement of a business acquisition or announcement of a divorce. And this is an opportunity for an investment management company to come in and offer its services. With a business acquisition, the former owner would just come into a lot of money, and he or she would then need to manage it effectively. So that's an opportunity for an investment management company to do that. Or with a divorce, one of the partners would usually be managing the money, and then the other partner would now need to learn how to manage the money for a significant sum of money. And this is, again, an opportunity for an investment management company to come in and do its thing of managing. And so I worked with the company to develop a tool that would research various events and would draft an automated email based on the event that occurred to send to the prospect. They would find the prospect's email address, they would draft the email, and then the account manager is supposed to evaluate it and send it and tweak it, improve it in the process.
Sure.
But what happened, and this was before I came in, is that the account managers would just automatically send the email. And so the email was reasonably customized. It was well done, but it wasn't in their voice. And so as a result, once people started responding and they started talking to the account manager by email, they were confused because the initial email was not like how the account manager sounded on later emails. And so that caused a problem with client retention. It's like, why are you sounding different? And so that's a problematic tool because it's not customized. The account managers weren't trained on how to use the tool effectively. They weren't trained on how to change it to sound like them because each person sounds different. More broadly, the underlying issue, going back to the psychology, was that people were reluctant to adopt this tool. They were hesitant. They felt like this tool was a threat to their professional identity. They felt proud of being able to prospect for new people, to reach out to them. And they felt that, hey, this tool is going to take my job and it's going to threaten who I am as an employee. And so you have these psychological tendencies that made people reluctant to even get training on the tool. So they were given this tool to use, and this tool is a really good tool to use, obviously, if you know how to use it well. But because of these psychological blockers, they were not using it effectively. And the psychological blockers, there are 3 big psychological blockers with AI adoption. And they're not the typical psychological blockers that people think when you're thinking about change management and the resistance to change. Because a typical psychological blocker with using new technology is that it's a hassle to learn. When you're adopting a new CRM, you need to learn about a number of places to click, a number of places to figure out, how to
Well,
do things differently.
that might have been part of the reason why that last initiative you just described to me failed. I could see multiple things going wrong with what you just described. A situation where some people might have over relied on the AI and said, it's AI, it'll do it great, and really embraced it and let it do its thing, and not having their human voice and having the disconnect as a result. So I could see why some people might just be over reliant on it. And I could also see where some would be hesitant, like, hey, this is going to take my job. And they're not wrong to feel that way. When these companies are out there saying, oh, AI is not going to take our job, it's just going to enhance it, justifiably so, there's a lot of employees that are going to call bull on that and say, no, this is going to take my job. But in this particular example, this is one of those exact examples where if they were over reliant on AI and didn't have humans to go in and look at what was being said in their voice to their customers and having that mismatch, then obviously it was costing them to not have the human. So if I were an executive at that company, I would use that as an example of, yes, I acknowledge that your fear of change is real and that this could be a fear of losing your job. But if machines could do all this, well, you've let it try. And this was a disconnect with our customers, and we lost business because of it. And we're not in the business of losing more business. So let's help you get better at using this and find ways to work together to use artificial intelligence with real intelligence in a way that helps everybody. But that's going to take time, because we're kind of in that transition where people are still trying to figure out, what does this mean for me and what does this mean for the customer? How do you know when resistance to AI is legitimate warning sign and when it's just simply fear of change?
So let's talk a little bit about that fear of change. And so the point I think it's important to realize is that fear of change previously did not have to do with fear of losing your job. And so that's kind of fundamental. When you use a CRM, when you're adopting a new database management tool, when you're adopting a new CRM, an ERP, HRM system, any of these systems, you are not going to lose your job because you adopt that system. You're not going to lose your job because you transition from using various Excel spreadsheets to look up customer information to using customer relationship management software to look up and log customer information. And so
that's an excellent example.
When HR personnel, and those are the kind of things that people adopted previously. So when HR personnel, when organizational change management professionals, when leaders in operations roles, when they think about change management resistance, they think about it's difficult to learn and people feel it's a lot of hassle and they don't want to let go of their current ways of working because it's a trouble to learn this new way of working. Now, that is what they're used to. That's their mindset. That's how they're thinking. This AI system is completely different. It's really easy to learn how to use AI tools. So it's much, much easier to learn once you have the mindset shift. Once you understand, you can talk to the AI tool. You can ask it how to do things. You can change it and evaluate it. And it's super easy to learn once you get comfortable with it. But the key issue is the emotional blocker. And there are 3 emotional blockers. So one of these is fear and anxiety. Fear and anxiety around job loss in a way that there wasn't around previous technology. This is a new thing. Leaders aren't thinking about it. HR professionals aren't thinking about it sufficiently. So that's one of the groups. And in my new book, The Psychology of AI Adoption at Work, From Resistance to Results, I study this. So in over 100 consulting projects, including over 600 focus groups and many thousands of survey responses, I identified a psychographic profile. I talk about that in chapter 6, called the AI alarmists, for whom this is the major concern. So that's one. Now, the second one is going to be people who feel professionally threatened by it. They're not so afraid of losing their job, but looking up information in a CRM isn't a threat to who they are as a professional. But the ability to write an effective email, the ability to make an effective sale, the ability to create a great image, to write a good article, to write a great report, and do a great financial model, those are threats to who they are as a professional. And they don't want to let go of those tasks. And that is the second big obstacle that I see. And the third big obstacle is not those 2 obstacles. That's going to be the pragmatic resistors for people who are looking at chapter 6 in my book. And the third big obstacle is going to be not to individual adoption. The third big obstacle is for team adoption. And that obstacle has to do with the emotion of shame. People are ashamed of acknowledging that they used AI to draft their emails. They're ashamed of talking about how they used AI to do great marketing copy, to do great sales copy, to write great articles, great reports, images, and so on. And so as a result, you have what's called shadow AI usage. So people are using AI, but they don't want to talk about it. And so as a result, you have drop-offs at the team productivity level. People are individually more productive, but then as they get done with their tasks, they just sit around and go on, check out Facebook or something like that, because they don't want to talk to their supervisor about how they're using AI. They don't want to talk to their team members. So they get the same, they're expected to complete the same workload, and they're using AI to make it much more faster. And so you have a loss of team and organizational productivity while you have increased individual productivity. And so that shame, that social stigma of using AI is a third big emotional blocker. And that all leads to what the new study from MIT showed, that 95% of AI pilots don't show return on investment compared to the kind of resources invested into the AI tool. So that's a big, big thing to think about. So leaders, job professionals, folks of all sorts need to think about those three emotional blockers.
And this may be a one-off. I'm curious what your take on this is, but I know of one particular business owner who really, for lack of a better term, kind of demeaned one of his IT professionals. It's like, can't you just have AI do this? Well, I could do this with AI, or I could just do that with AI, implying that the IT guy should be able to do all these amazing things in languages he hasn't learned yet, which he probably eventually could figure out with the help of AI at some point. But the demeaning way in which the owner talked to this IT professional, like, oh, you should just be able to do this. You should just be able to do this. AI can do this. AI can do that. And he's like, well, AI can tell you how to ride a bike too, but that doesn't mean you're not going to crash.
Yeah.
And there's a big difference between being told what to do and being able to do it. I could do a whole bunch of work on AI to say, hey, how do I play basketball like Michael Jordan? But is that going to make me play basketball like Michael Jordan? Absolutely not. And I just thought that was a very interesting conversation between an owner who just automatically assumed that AI was so much more valuable than his real employees. Real people still have to execute these things in real ways, whether it's riding a bike or playing basketball or programming, fixing computer programming problems in different languages. You still have to have a human to execute it. And I think that I hope for those that are listening that may not run a business, but are involved in leading or managing it, that they remember that, and that it helps eliminate unnecessary friction between them and the people that are executing the stuff and may be fearful of job loss or feel threatened. What is the biggest mistake CEOs make when they announce an AI initiative to their organization, in your opinion?
Yeah. So I think what you pointed to is really important. What I see in terms of executives making a mistake is saying, here, I just got you all Claude licenses, and Claude is the most popular tool right now. Go ahead and use AI. That's the biggest mistake I see. And the executive then hopes that everyone will go and jump on it and use it the way she or he had. Because the executive is excited about it. They will be in the psychographic profile of efficiency seekers in that chapter 6. They are excited about it. They're enthusiastic. They think that, hey, there's so much that can be done. And they're not thinking from the perspective of their employees. They're not thinking about the job question. A number of people are thinking about, oh, you want me to use an AI tool to train a replacement for myself. Or from the perspective of that's the AI alarmist or the pragmatic resistor. Oh, I'm proud of doing all of these tasks. You want me to do tasks that I'm proud of, like, what am I? And so thinking about how people are not using AI tools and just the way that AI tools are announced and everyone told to use it, that's the biggest mistake I see.
So what should a CEO say when employees believe that AI adoption is really a plan to reduce headcount?
There are two things that need to happen to address the AI alarmist psychographic profile. And so I talk about that in chapters 7, 8, and 9. Now, what you want to do is, if possible, and most companies can do this, make a commitment to not fire anyone because AI is making your company more efficient, and instead focus on growth. We have a recent study coming out showing that companies that adopt AI quickly and effectively are actually growing at 10% faster in terms of headcount compared to others in their industry that aren't adopting AI effectively. Now, the interesting thing is they are growing faster compared to how much revenue. So they're growing their revenue and their top line and their profit, their bottom line is growing faster than 10% because they're able to use less people to get more things done. But overall, they're growing compared to their competitors, and they're thus able to hire more people to do more things. So 10% faster. So it's an accurate statement. If you're able to make it, most companies are in an industry where they can successfully outcompete others. There are some companies that are where there's a very limited market for some reason, and they're not able to make that commitment. But most companies are able to make that commitment to not focus on cost cutting, to focus on growth. That's one. The other element here that's really important is to flip the script for the AI alarmists. Currently, they're thinking that, oh, if I train this tool, then I will be replaced. But what they need to realize is that the future belongs to those who use AI tools effectively. The future is going to be all of us are going to be managers of agents, AI agents, right and left. And we can talk about that in more depth. But basically, what you need to do is tell them that your job will be safe as long as you learn how to use AI effectively. No question about it. Your job will be safe. You learn how to use AI tools effectively. You'll be more productive. You'll be more effective. Your job will truly be safe. And that's regardless of whether you are in a market where it's impossible to grow and you need to focus on efficiency and cost cutting because the people who will be let go are those who are not using AI efficiently. And
You know
even
what that
if
reminds me of?
something, go ahead.
It makes me think of, I mean, it's kind of, and I understand the fear now. Like, I get it. And I understand the optimism. I get that too. And I really think that you were hitting on something earlier. And I want to go back to that because I think it's very, very important. And I don't want to just zip over it. But if you look back, I can remember when the internet, email was new. Can you imagine someone say, oh, I don't want to learn how to do email because that could be a threat to my job? Or like you said, when it went from people using spreadsheets to CRM systems. Oh, I don't want to use this CRM system because that's a threat to my job. Or for that matter, if you want to go back further and say, why would I use computers? Like, I don't want that to be a threat to my job. And we can look back in hindsight and laugh at comments like that because exactly what you're saying. It's like, this is the way the future is going. And these tools and these technologies are just going to shift the way things are done so that you can do more, better, and faster. And if you resist it, then it's literally the equivalent of going back in time and say, oh, I don't want to learn computers, or, oh, I don't want to learn how to do email, or I don't even want to know how to do spreadsheets. And when you look at it that way, it's almost laughable. So I really think that you did a very nice job of explaining the transition to people. And it's like, look, this is just the newest evolution of work. Could you maybe share a story where
Sure.
a leader changed the way AI was introduced and turned resistance into genuine participation and enthusiasm even?
Sure. So I worked with a number of companies where the get close for everyone and the resistance is the result. If possible at all, and large majority of companies can do is focus on growth, not job cutting. And then talk frankly about your future is going to be secure if you learn how to use AI tools effectively. So that's going to help address most of the concerns of the AI alarmist. You have the carrot and stick. Now, you also need to address the concerns of the pragmatic resistors. And so, how leaders can do this, and what I've worked with leaders on doing, is to not focus on automating the kind of activities that people feel proud about, that represents part of their professional identity, that represents part of their creative identity. Instead of saying, how can we effectively use AI to accomplish these really important tasks for you, writing articles and reports and so on, do a survey that says, what are your most annoying free tasks? What are the things that you do where you have to look up across a whole variety of systems and gather data together across a variety of systems and pull it together in order to do the important tasks that you want to be doing? What are the activities that you would like to get off your plate? So those sorts of questions, you want to do a survey to understand those sorts of questions. And then you want to create a prompt library. So a set of prompts that would help people accomplish these workflows that are going to be skeleton prompts, meaning ones that people can customize to their needs, that are going to accomplish these specific workflows that people feel annoyed by, frustrated by, that they want to get off their plate, because AI is a super flexible tool. you can get it to do almost anything that you in white collar work that doesn't have to do with the physical world. You can get it to do almost anything. And if you help people automate the tasks that are super annoying to them, frustrating, that they want to get off their plate, that's where you'll get the pragmatic resistors to start actually using AI tools. Everyone has aspects of their job that they hate. You can get AI to do most of these things. So
Okay.
what you can do is focus on those, then train people on those specific activities, give them prompt libraries, train them on those, and then people will start getting into it. Over time, they will naturally expand to other areas, things that they feel are closer to their central of who they are, because they feel how efficient the AI tools are. They're doing this. Well, okay, of course I'm going to do it to use it to do those things. But don't start with it. If you start with it, you get a lot of resistance.
Okay. So before we continue, I want to share an opportunity for listeners who are ready to put better workforce practices into action. They can apply for the Workforce Alchemy Challenge to receive expert training and the opportunity to qualify for up to $1,000 in practical assessment tools that you can use to help reduce turnover, workplace drama, and unnecessary labor costs while generating more discretionary effort. And you can learn more at workforcealchemy.com. So now I got that little plug in. Let's continue. You've mentioned earlier something about the future is going to belong to people who can manage AI agents. Give us a glimpse of what that looks like and why you say that.
So I talked about one type of AI agent that's doing automated client prospect outreach. So that's a great tool that can be used effectively.
You
Another
might
tool.
actually step back. You might step back and describe what an AI agent is, because
Sure.
we have people of varying levels of understanding out there. So if you wouldn't mind, hey, what is an AI agent and what's involved in managing one and what kind of things can you do with it? And you can kind of just give us an overview of what you see coming in the future. If you had a little crystal ball and say, hey, Mason, here's what's coming, what would you
Mhm.
tell us?
So when you want to think about an AI tool in general that you're going to use, you should think of it as a new employee that's just been hired at your company who doesn't have any of the context for what you do, but is very quick, very fast, a quick learner. But again, you need to give it all the context and all the instructions for it to do tasks effectively. Now, one way you can work with the employee is tell her or him exactly what to do each time. So that's called prompting, prompt engineering. So prompting is just telling the employee, do this task, do this task, do this task, do this task. Prompt engineering is creating the kind of request that's going to effectively get you the outcome that you want. So you give the employee specific guardrails, instructions, everything that you want to be accomplished to the task. Like, let's say you want the report done, or you want it to triage your email or prioritize the tasks in your day. You want to give the employee, of course, very specific instructions about what does it mean to triage your email, what's important, what's not, and so on. So just talking to the employee to give it specific tasks, that's prompting. And prompt engineering is creating a prompt that's going to be really high quality. So that's prompting and prompt engineering. And the next
You know what?
stage
I'm
is
going to interrupt you 1 second there because something's jumping out at me and I don't want to lose it. And I hope I don't throw you off your rhythm. But
no worries.
I found that taking the time to improve my competence in prompt engineering has made me a better leader and communicator with real humans, because it is teaching me not to assume that someone understood what I wanted or that someone can read my mind. I have become much more clear in my communication with vendors and team members about, hey, this is exactly the outcome that I want. Here's what I would like you to do. Here's how I want you to do it. And here's why it's important. Now, AI is probably not going to care about why it's important, but humans do. But I have become much more conscientious about the quality and the detail that I give instructionally to people that I work with because of this. So trying to work with AI has made me better at working with humans. But anyway, go ahead,
Excellent.
please.
No,
Continue.
that's a good example. Yes. Yeah, so that's a good way of thinking about it. That's exactly the right mindset to give it very clear, thorough instructions. So that's prompting. So is talking to prompt engineering is creating a clear, specific request that gets you what you want every time. The next step is agents. That means taking an engineered prompt, one that gets you the requests that you want every time, and having it take actions in a scheduled way in the real world. So, for example, we talked about the example before. So, first, how did I work with the company to build that prompt that would be reaching out to people, or how did the company build that prompt? So, the company built the prompt by the engineered prompt by first figuring out, okay, what needs to happen? There needs to be a number of activities. We need to identify prospects, these triggers. So it needs to go online and research announcements about divorces and about business acquisitions in the local area. Then it needs to take that information and customize a pitch email to them using the company branding guidelines and structure and template of how to create a good pitch email to them. And then it needs to draft that email. So not simply put it in the chat, but put it in your email ready to send. And then people would actually send. And the last step should have been people editing it to be in their voice, which again, we talked about how that was an issue. So that is an agent. It takes actions in the real world by researching. It then drafts the email internally, and then it puts it in your email draft file. So in your email draft folder. And so that's one type of agent. And there are many, many types of agents that there could be. So for example, one of the agents that I just did a training this morning for a company, and we created an external meeting prep agent. So what would happen is for meetings with prospects and any other external meetings with external stakeholders, with vendors, so any external meetings, it would gather information from the company's CRM, from the email exchanges, from the calendar, from the company's SharePoint, and from the company's OneDrive and other company files and folders. And then it would draft a meeting pack. So a preparatory meeting that would email to the person who is going to have the meeting an hour before the meeting. And so the person doesn't have to do any of that prep work, which used to take a bunch of time preparing for meetings with prospects, with clients, with vendors. So now that's done. So that's another type of meeting of agent. So again, that's something that looks at your calendar and is able to, based on the calendar, create all of that information and mail it to you at the right time. So that's what agents are. They're able to take actions in the real world, drawing in different data sources, following consistent, specific instructions. And so in the future, everyone will be managing a suite of such agents that address a whole variety of workflows that they're currently doing. So instead of doing all these tasks themselves, they will be managing these agents, making sure that these agents are functioning correctly and that they're providing them with the information they need so that a salesperson doesn't have to do any outbound information. They're only taking inbound messages. So that's like just going in a deeper on sales. So they're completely prepared for any meetings. So that with clients who they currently have relationships with, they have automatic follow-ups that are going to be customized and ready for them to send. So they're going to be draft emails. So lots and lots of things that make them super efficient and focused on the things that really matter. With salespeople, it's going to be making the sale and then retaining the client over time. And so that is what agents will be, what the agents already are, and they'll get better and better over time.
You have me imagining the future and my instincts, and we'll see when we look back years from now and reflect on this conversation, whether I was right or not. But I can see the need for developing the skill to manage the agents, just like you've described. I don't think the ability to lead or manage humans will ever become obsolete. I can see a short period of time where there is perhaps a trend where people are going to overdo it on, hey, I need to learn how to manage all these prompts and all this AI, and they may neglect the soft human side of it. And I think that will come back to bite people in the end when the pendulum swings back towards the balance between leading people and managing agents. And I'm curious to see how the future unfolds, but my gut tells me that yes, people now that have aspirations of management and leadership in business are going to be well served to learn how to manage agents And I think the ones that go really far, the best of the best, are going to continue to focus on developing their interpersonal skills and their leadership skills as it relates to people, because that's truly the best of both worlds for people that I think have that vision of being the best of the best in whatever industry they're in. We'll see if I'm right, but I'm willing to go on the record right now and say I think that's what's going to happen. We'll see.
Yeah.
What are your
So
thoughts?
sure. So I talk about that in the later chapters in my book. I don't think it's going to be that like flat kind of managing people. It's not going to be that. The key skill of the future will be managing people who manage agents. And
I
so
see
that's
that.
going to, so I would, it's not going to be like flatness. It's going to be managing people who manage agents. That's the skill of managers in the future. And so I talk about that in the last chapters of my book. Like I said, the psychology of AI adoption at work, from resistance to results. And so the skill would involve figuring out, okay, you're leading, let's say, a team of 8 people. You have each person is managing a suite of agents. What's happening at the handoffs? Look, let's say you have a salesperson who made a sale. What's happening at the handoff of from the salesperson to the account manager? How's that going? How is her agents figuring, Mary's agents who is making the sale to Bob's agents who are managing the account, right? How's that going? And all of these handoff team collaboration issues. How do you effectively manage people, a series of people who are managing their own agents, and how do you get them to work together effectively while also managing your own agents? So, for example, with managers, they need to learn how to have different types of agents. So, for example, they need to learn how to manage performance management agents, ones that go across a year. Let's say once a year annual performance evaluation. They take the data from across a year and put them into a AI database, let's call the project, with all the information about somebody's deliverables over the course of a year, with instructions on how to evaluate those deliverables and create an ongoing performance evaluation so that you don't have to evaluate, you can evaluate them with a thorough performance once a year, but ideally you would be sending them a weekly performance evaluation automatically after, of course, you edit it and tweak it. So it creates a weekly performance evaluation email draft for you, which you can edit and tweak before sending it onward to this person about how you've been doing the last week or whatever else, whatever cadence you want to set. And so that is a different type of agent that's specifically for managers. So managers need to learn how to manage their own agents that are going to be specific for managers, and they need to learn how to manage effectively people who are managing agents that are ensuring good team collaboration and handoffs to each other, and addressing that last issue of the psychographic profile. I talk about that in chapter 6 of the cautious, reluctant adopters who feel shame and stigma around using AI and talking about it.
Let's talk about those people for a second. How can leaders encourage employees to maybe experiment with AI while still protecting sensitive information, quality standards, and customer trust? I mean, I always almost like think of like a kid in a sandbox. It's like, play with it, see what happens. And what's your thoughts on that?
So to ensure that they do that and they talk about it and they're not using it in a shadowy fashion and that the team gets benefits, what they need to do is, first of all, model it themselves. So that's critical. Leaders need to talk about how they're using it for performance evaluation, how they're using it to draft their emails, to draft the reports, to do financial models, to look at profit and loss statements, analyze those and create those. They need to be talking about how they're using it and addressing the social stigma of using it to make sure that it's addressed. That's the first fundamental. Second, they need to provide a baseline of training to everyone. And again, on the tasks that people dislike to do, that they don't want to do. So that baseline of training is going to be there and that people can talk about, hey, I'm using AI to do these things, so that there's public usage. Then they need to provide an asynchronous venue for people to actually talk about their AI usage. So have a Teams channel, a Slack channel, where people share about their AI accomplishments and what they're doing effectively. And the leader needs to positively reinforce and reward them with words of encouragement. And I encourage companies to set up like small financial rewards for especially effective time-saving techniques that save companies time and money and improve the resources. So thinking about those metrics that are going to accomplish your outcomes. So ideally you would do that, but at least you could praise them for doing it. So those are the three elements that are really helpful for addressing the reluctant adopters, getting them, addressing the social stigma, addressing that shame, and making sure that you have modeling, training, and post-training sharing and rewarding, praising the usage of AI tools.
So, if there was just one piece of advice that you could give to business owners or CEOs or executives that are listening or watching today, what would be the most important piece of advice you would offer them and why?
It's not the technology, it's the psychology. The technology is actually quite easy to use once you learn how to use it. You need to address the psychology. You need to address the three big emotional blockers that we talked about: fear and anxiety, identity threat, and shame. Once you address the psychology, once you flip the switch for people's mindsets, they can figure out how to use AI tools with appropriate training, of course. But even without the training, it's very easy to learn how to use the AI tools. So that would be my one piece of advice. Remember, it's not the technology, it's the psychology.
First of all, thank you. If people want to know more about you, your books, the work, the consulting that you do, what are the best ways for them to connect?
Well, the first thing is to reach out. Best way to connect is on LinkedIn. I'm very present there. And you should tell me you heard me on this podcast, because I don't just accept LinkedIn connections from anyone. There's way too much spam. So they'll look up my name, Dr. Gleb Tsipursky, on LinkedIn, connect with me, very easily available. That's the first thing. But if you want to, and that's connecting with me, if you want to learn more about my work, so if you want to get a free introduction and chapter from my book, go to disasteravoidanceexperts.com/AI book. Again, disasteravoidanceexperts.com/AI book. You'll find the introduction and a free chapter for the book. And if you bought the book and you put your order number in from Barnes Noble, from Amazon, or a receipt from a physical bookstore, anything like that, put it in and you'll get a free assessment associated with the book on adopting AI effectively in your company, and a manual on the 7 mistakes that leaders tend to make with AI adoption. So it's all going to be at disasteravoidanceexperts.com/AI book.
Dr. Tsipursky, I really appreciate your time and your talent and your expertise. Thank you for sharing that with us. And before we wrap up, I just want to leave people listening with one practical next step. If you want less turnover, less workplace drama, and more discretionary effort from your team, apply for the Workforce Alchemy Challenge at workforcealchemy.com. You'll receive expert training and have the opportunity to qualify for up to $1,000 in tools that you can actually use. Thank you so much for joining us, and it's been a pleasure having you, Dr. Tsipursky. Thank you.
Well, thank you again for inviting me, Mason. It's been great.